Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Danielle. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Where are you bunkered down in lockdown?
I'm actually lucky enough to be still going into work. So I'm at Engine in Mordialloc today. So lockdown Melbourne, but luckily I'm a required worker. We've got a warehouse logistics and management stuff. So I'm able to come in and keep a bit of a regular routine.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you enjoying the Olympics?
Loving it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's the Aussies are just going so well.
yeah,
It's so good for one that they've gone ahead. Obviously with all the challenges of last year was always a little bit uncertain as to whether it was going to go ahead. But now that it's on, it couldn't be any better.
yeah.
And the swimming so far has been a highlight. To watch the other sports. You forget about them a little bit. I can be a little bit kind of blinkers on with just swimming and AFL football here in Melbourne. So just to be able to watch the gymnastics and the hockey and the soccer and the water polo, it's just awesome just to sit on the couch all weekend and absorb it.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I feel like I've swum every race with them.
I know. It's emotional, isn't it?
Yeah,
And funny enough, I could have been there. I actually had flights and accommodation all booked to go last year, but obviously with COVID, it all fell through. So it would have been amazing to be there. And it's one of the things I said after swimming in Beijing that I wanted to try to go to as many Olympics as I could, not necessarily to go to the events, but just to be in the city when an Olympics is on. There's an amazing buzz about the place, whether you're just going to the city centre and watching it on a big screen and having a beer and a hot dog with the Americans and some Japanese and some Ukrainians or whoever it is. It's just a beautiful time to celebrate sport
yeah,
and just being healthy and stuff like that. So it was disappointing not to be able to go last year, but
yeah,
amazing that it's on. And obviously the news this week with Brisbane 32
yeah.
2032, it's really exciting that that we can start gearing towards that, and a whole generation can use these Olympics and what Ariana Titmus and the 4x1 girls and Jack McLaughlin in the 400 free have done as
Yeah,
motivation to see them through all the way for the next 10, 11 years.
yeah, absolutely. And what's been your favourite race so far?
Um, That 4x100 freestyle, women's 4x100 free, where they broke the world record, was pretty incredible.
Yeah,
And then yesterday with Ariana Titmus, that 400 free beating Ledecky, it was just almost like the perfect race by
yeah,
her. So
yes,
those two have just been amazing. And I also think Brendan Smith to get third in
yeah,
the 400 medley was an amazing achievement. So I've known Brendan for probably 5-6 years now, and
wow,
I knew he was destined to do great things. I
yeah,
knew he was a real hard worker, and when he was right up there at the 300-meter mark, you know that he was going to really rip in and give it everything he could. So to come away with a bronze medal, so
yes,
same as what I got in Beijing, I
yeah,
know that like it was similar feeling to what I had in Beijing, that he won a bronze medal. And that a bronze medal is as good as a gold for him, and similar to like what the bronze medal was for me in Beijing.
yeah. That's awesome. Well, we've sort of skipped ahead, and I wanted to talk all about your time in Beijing. You obviously came away with a silver and 2 bronze there. Talk us through that 100 butterfly bronze medal, because that was just an awesome race.
Yeah, it's quite an iconic race, isn't it? Even when you go
Yeah,
on the 7+ app now, it's one of the highlight races that they've got featured from previous Olympics, and to
yeah,
be involved in that race, and to see my name pop up at the end, you see Phelps, then Cabbage, then Lauterstein come up on the TV screen. It's
yeah,
quite surreal, to be honest. And almost the race itself was a little bit of an out of body experience.
okay.
I say that in that I knew that I could do it,
Yep,
and I had enough belief in myself that I wasn't rattled, and I felt very in control. And then also that I'd prepared so well that when I dived in, it came automatically.
yep,
So there was nothing that I could fear, in the fact that my training had been so good in the lead up that I knew exactly how many kicks I was going to do, how many strokes, when I was going to take my breaths, what it was going to feel like as I came off the wall.
yeah,
That all I had to go out there was and just relax and execute. So that was kind of just my race plan, was to essentially not try or not try too hard and force it, and
Yes.
just let it happen. So, yeah, the race itself, probably the highlight was, the hearing Michael Phelps's famous back slap, when you step up onto the block. So when you've got 15,000 people going pretty crazy before a race, they blow the whistle for you to get up on the block, and then all of a sudden it's silent.
Yes.
And then you're getting ready for the take your marks, and then you hear the Michael Phelps back slap. That's that's something you've seen on TV for the last 5 years, and something that you never thought you would be standing up on the blocks at Olympic final hearing. That's when the nerves really kicked in. And then luckily they quickly said take your mark, boom, and then once I was off and racing, it was it came automatically, like what I said before.
That must be so intimidating hearing that sound.
It is. It's quite unique because everyone has their own little things that they do before their race. The way they put on their goggles, and maybe the way they slap their arms or splash some water on themselves. But typically those things happen before you get up on the block, so it doesn't really affect anyone else. Whereas Michael's was always that last couple of seconds before the race starts, and I'm sure it got in the head of a lot of swimmers, that was the maybe something that he did differently that gave him that advantage, and why he was so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk us through what happens in the sort of the ready room, in the marshalling room before you come out. Is someone like Michael Phelps sort of going through that in there, or are you talking to each other? What's happening?
At the Olympics, it's a little bit different, because you're representing your country, and typically when you're racing people, it is a little bit more like a bit more fun. Whereas at the Olympics, it's very serious. So you've got your countries; it's quite patriotic. So everyone's sitting with their countries, and you're just focusing on yourself. Also, with the rivalry between Australia and the US, there wasn't a whole lot of love lost in 2008 between the teams. So there wasn't much, high-fiving and backslapping going on between Michael Phelps and I, or, even between me and any of the other competitors in the race. Everyone's kind of focused on what they have to do, whether it's out of nerves or just taking it so seriously that they're just focusing on themselves. So my strategy there was just to have some music on for myself, and just worry about me. A funny story with Phelps was the semi-final of the 100 fly. So he's just gone out, and he won earlier in the night. He won a gold medal in the 200 medley. And then so a couple of events later, he goes out and does the medal presentation. I was in semi-final number 1, and I was waiting. I was in lane 3, and I was waiting in the ready room. We're all standing up waiting for the medal presentation to finish, and Michael to come and join the semi-final before he went out. So there he is out on the podium, receives his medal, national anthem, does the lap of honour, then pops into the marshalling room, quickly changes his tracksuit, puts his swimming cap and goggles on, music on, and then the officials go, "You good to go?" He goes, "Yep, good to go." Walks out, breaks the Olympic record. I remember after I won a bronze medal in the 100 fly, I didn't sleep for a couple of days. I was that excited. So it was almost like the way he was able to manage his emotions was something that was just so incredible. And I guess with that goal that he had in mind, the 8 gold medals, he wasn't going to stop until he achieved it. Just kept his emotions at bay. Whereas there I was just like a yo-yo.
I'd be the same. I mean, an Olympic bronze medal is an amazing achievement. You must be so proud of that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and even the relay teams that we're involved with. So I was in the freestyle relay, like what the boys had the 4x100 yesterday. So I was involved in that relay, and we got a bronze medal to start off the Olympics.
Yes.
So I kind of did a bit of a freestyle, and then butterfly a bit later than the medley at the end. And like what the guys said yesterday, it's just that camaraderie, and to be racing with, like what Kyle said, friends that you've spent 24/7 with the last 3 or 4 weeks in the lead up and the training camps and stuff like that. And some of the guys I've been racing with since I was 12 or 13 years of age, to then come all the way through the ranks with them and stand up there at the Olympics and race in relays, it's a pretty special time.
Yeah, it just I loved their press conferences afterwards, just the camaraderie that they had, and they looked just so tight. And even the Aussie girls before they raced the other day, the way they were all sitting in a little circle facing each other, and everyone else in the marshalling room was looking straight ahead and sitting there, not talking to their teammates. It's a really lovely
Yeah.
thing that the Australian team have sort of been able to get that culture onto the team.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're in a pretty good space at the moment. Rowan Taylor, that would be something that he's been really working on as the head coach. And I know that the time that they've spent is maybe a little bit more in these training camps because of COVID. So that they have spent more time together. And then obviously, even with that time they're spending together, it's almost been in like bubbles. So typically when you're away, it's like, okay, we'll do our training session in the morning, and some people go out shopping or go to the movies. So the team kind of splits up a little bit and just kind of keeping your week a little bit more regular. Whereas when they were in Cairns before they went to Tokyo, my understanding is they were in a bubble, so a little bit more time spent together. And obviously that's when you're forming relationships and bonds. And it's like with anything, you become better friends with someone the more you have in common and the more stories that you have together and the more time together. So with all that time, then they get to Tokyo together and they're kind of invincible. And like what we've seen is they're best friends.
Yeah. I'm really interested in the sort of the lead up to your race in terms of your training with your 100 butterfly. How many weeks or days did you need for your taper?
Oh, well, leading into the Olympics, I actually had some shoulder problems. So I typically was doing like a 3-week taper.
Right.
So I did a little bit of a taper on the Gold Coast. But what I was doing every Saturday, probably from 10 weeks out, every Saturday morning, I would do 100 freestyle time trial and 100 butterfly time trial at the end of a hard session. And so I did that for 10 weeks. And then kind of the idea with that was to get a little bit faster each week. And then as you freshen up in your taper in Kuala Lumpur, which is where we were for the staging camp, do a really, really good hit out, because the training session beforehand was a little bit less. The week of training in the lead up to that time trial was a little bit less. So you're a little bit fresher. And then kind of go from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, take a really nice, easy week, and then hit the 7-day competition or 8-day competition like we had. So typically a 3-week taper, but I was doing, that time trials. But with my shoulder in Kuala Lumpur, I even had almost like, what do they call it? Like a sped up taper, because I got a cortisone injection in my shoulder before we left Kuala Lumpur to go into Beijing, which meant kind of I had to have a couple of days completely out of the water. And sometimes that can like really let your body rest and recover. And then you jump back in the water feeling nice and fresh. So typically 3 weeks. And then I had a 3-day super rest in the middle as well.
Yeah, that sounds nice. What was the shoulder injury? Just overuse.
Just overuse. So when growing up, I played baseball. I played water polo, and then obviously did lots of swimming. So my poor right shoulder got a lot of that forward rotation movement. So so it was more just to give me a bit of relief on the shoulder. And then once I got back from Beijing, I had it just cleaned out. So they went in there and they had a look at my shoulder, and they said it looked like a 90-year-old's shoulder, not a 21-year-old's, from the amount of use it's had.
Yeah, I think a lot of swimmers would have that sort of issue as well. I don't think I'd like to have an MRI of my own shoulders. That wouldn't be good. You mentioned all the sports you played as a youngster. What made you choose swimming in the end?
Yeah, so growing up, I played footy, baseball, did life saving down at Blackrock, and then water polo, baseball. I guess I love them all, and I love being involved in a team. And obviously, being a part of the Australian swim team is something that was really important. But I think it was the fact that swimming is quite an individual sport, and also your results are dictated by the time. So you put in a really good preparation and lots of hard work and make the right choices, and then you stand up on the block and you execute a good race and you get given a time, that time is the testament to kind of the hard work that you've put in. And you can't lie. You can't lie to the stopwatch. So I liked being rewarded for my hard work, and I like to see improvement for myself. Whereas I found in kind of those team sports, it was a little bit harder to maybe see how my improvement was tracking. Because, you know, like if I was really fit, but I gave off the handball and someone missed the goal, we still would lose. Whereas I would like to be in control. So it was almost me being a bit of a control freak. But then also what happens with swimming is it starts to take over. You start to make a few touring teams, and I went to a Trans-Tasman event when I was 13 years of age in New Zealand, and then I started traveling around and being presented with lots of these opportunities, training camps, and being exposed to the likes of Michael Klim and Ian Thorpe and stuff like that. It's kind of addictive, and just makes you want to just keep doing what you're doing, because you're loving the opportunities, you're loving the improvement, and everything involved with the hard work and discipline is something that was attractive for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you went to a few other world championships as well. First one in Melbourne. What was that like, being in your hometown?
Amazing.
Yeah.
We're pretty lucky. 2006 to have the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne, and then 2007 to have the World Championships in Laver Arena, which is where they play the Australian Open. So that was a pretty amazing time. I was still really young then. So growing up in Melbourne, I went to Brighton Grammar in Melbourne, and then I moved to the Gold Coast as soon as I finished school. So that was in 2005. So then for my next two teams on the national team to be in Melbourne in the Com Games and then the World Champs was pretty lucky. That it's just amazing. The crowds were phenomenal. I still can't remember a louder crowd than at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne. They had this huge scaffolding stadium. The outdoor pool at MSAC. It's really only got the permanent stand on the one side, so they built these huge scaffolding stands on the other side, and any time the crowd even got a hint of seeing an Australian walking on pool deck, they would just start like tapping their feet on the ground, and it sounded like thunder every single time someone came out. That was pretty incredible. And in 2007, we were lucky enough to win the 4x100 medley relay in front of a home crowd. So the favourite team, the Americans, got disqualified in the heats. So they were the hot favourites. I think they had world record holders in all four of the strokes, so they were going to be pretty hard to beat. But we were lucky enough that they had a bit of a mishap in the heats and made the most of the opportunity in the final, and that was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I went along to one of the sessions at Rod Laver. It was amazing, that little sort of fishbowl feel where all the energy is coming right in on top of the pool. A great meet.
The chair, when you're on pool deck, sometimes the crowd feels a little bit more removed, like there's a couple of meter gap, but at that pool, the crowd was right on top of the pool. It was quite special.
Yeah. And you swam a few years after that and retired in 2012. Why did you retire? Like what led you to that?
I wasn't swimming that well anymore. And probably hadn't been for 2 years almost. So in 2008, I won the medals at the Olympics. 2009, I moved from the Gold Coast to Sydney and changed training squads and started training at the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and almost in like a high performance program with Libby Trickett, Eamon Sullivan, Jeff Hugel, Matt Abood. And we were presented with some really great opportunities. We traveled Europe for 4 months and trained and lived over there. So went to lots of different meets in Barcelona, Milan, Sweden, Denmark, and just that experience that I had over there was amazing. And that was 2009. Then 2010 was the Commonwealth Games, and that was one that I really had targeted to kind of win. Obviously coming third at the Olympics is great, but winning a gold medal for Australia is something that I really wanted to achieve, and kind of just gave everything to that preparation, but almost in the detriment to myself, probably didn't recover enough. And then when I got to Delhi in India, got sick and didn't get to race my two main events, the 50 fly and the 100 fly, because I was sick the whole time. So having to have that setback was pretty challenging for me. And then off the back of that, from 2010 to 2012, I didn't swim well once, which gets pretty hard. Yeah. So I ended up missing a team in 2011 for the World Championships, and then moving back to Melbourne just to try to rest and recover a little bit at home. I was kind of finding maybe living in Sydney a bit stressful as far as money and the traffic and the travel and stuff like that. So just removing a couple of those things that I could control maybe was going to help my recovery a little bit more. So I moved back home with mum and dad just to give it one last hit out before the Olympic trials for London, and felt like I had a really good preparation, and just went to Adelaide for the Olympic trials and just didn't do that well, and then just kind of stopped training. No, I didn't make any formal retirements or anything like that, but just I just knew it was time. At the time, I'd been working at Engine for probably 6-8 months part-time, and just felt like I was 25 years of age. It was time to just to move into the next phase of life.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you said you mentioned working at Engine. How did it come about that you ended up becoming partners in that business?
Yeah, well, way back when I was 13 years of age, I was the first Engine athlete. So I was sponsored.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Toby Haynen, who's the founder of Engine, was best mates with my coach,
right?
Glenn Baker. So I was with the same coach from 12 until 21, and so Toby Haynen came to the King Club where I was training with Glenn Baker, and Toby comes and goes, "Hey, Glenn, I want to sponsor one of the best swimmers in Australia," and Glenn goes, "Okay." And Toby goes, "Oh, who is it?" And Glenn goes, "Oh, that guy there in the water." And Andrew. And Toby's like, "No, not your best swimmer, Glenn. I want the best swimmer in Australia." And he goes, "Yeah, that guy." So I've been and then so from there I've it started off with Engine, just started with goggles. So it was Engine eyewear initially, and then started to build kind of the inventory over time. And then since 2012, the brand's become a little bit more mature in what we're doing as far as our product offering and doing teamwear and performance suits and stuff like that. And in hindsight, what's that, like 9 years ago now. Time flies, doesn't it? We're in a really good position here, and I love coming to work every day and just still to be involved in the sport that I love so much, the sport of swimming, and then also heavily involved in surf lifesaving. It's pretty lucky to have had the opportunity to transition so nicely.
Yeah. Is Engine available all around the world, or is it mainly an Australian swimwear company?
Yeah, we ship worldwide, and we've got a couple of distributors in New Zealand, Japan, over in Europe, America a little bit, but shipping to America is not too bad at the moment. We have actually one of your guests, Rock Santos. Worked. Yeah, he actually, when I first started in 2012, he worked for Engine as well. So he tried to get the brand into the US a little bit, but the US is pretty competitive, and you got some big brands over there who have a bit of a stranglehold on the market, but it was great to work with Rock and get a bit of an understanding how the US works, and it's chipping along nicely.
Yeah, that's awesome. I use your goggles in the ocean. They're great.
Oh, good to hear.
And so when you had this time when you retired from swimming and you were doing the Engine, you did a lot of other fitness activities, of the CrossFit games. What's that all about? How did you get involved in that?
Yeah, so as soon as I finished swimming, I just had to do something. I knew that that was always a big part of my life, having goals and something to work towards. So as soon as I finished swimming, literally the easiest thing I could do was put on a pair of shoes and start running. I like the idea of walking out the front of my house and being able to run left, and then run back, and that'd be 10K and it'd be done. So that was kind of the, when you get to the end of your swimming career, some of the hardest things can be kind of the recovery sessions. You drive 30 minutes to get to a pool, you stretch for 30 minutes, you maybe swim for 45 minutes, and then you come home and it's like, I really just spent 3.5, 4 hours just to do a kilometer, 1,500 meters in the pool. That seems a bit crazy. So what I liked was the hard work, and I liked being able to do things efficiently. So I started off just running, and then so I did a half marathon within 2 months of retiring from swimming, and then did a marathon the following year. And then after doing the marathon, I had a mate who contacted me and said, "Oh, Andrew, you should come and try CrossFit. I reckon you'd really like it." So I went along with him and went to the first session and was kind of addicted from there. I liked which was different to swimming was the range of skills and strength work that you could look to improve. Obviously with swimming, you had the one goal, and that was to improve how fast you could do a certain amount of laps in the pool of a particular stroke. Whereas in CrossFit, it was like, yeah, cool. One day I can work on my pull-ups. I can work on my handstand walking, my handstand push-ups, some rowing and some Olympic lifting. And it was all new and foreign to me. And every time I went back to the gym, I was kind of improving. So again, completely different to the last 2 years of my swimming. It was quite rewarding, and I just loved it. And I kept going back, and knowing me, I get quite competitive with things quite quickly. So before I knew it, I was doing competitions, and I was part of different teams, and we're traveling around Australia. Competing, and our team ended up winning the equivalent of nationals for CrossFit. Our gym in Caulfield is called Schwartz CrossFit Melbourne, and we ended up going to the World CrossFit Games in California, representing Australia and in CrossFit. So I got to, that was in I think 2016 or 2015. So I got to stand up there and compete against who is like the greatest of all time in CrossFit. His name's Rich Froning. So for anyone who's out there that knows Rich Froning, I did a swim workout against him and a running workout against him. And that was pretty cool to transition, not only in my work, but to keep some physical stuff going as well. But knowing me, I go pretty hard at it.
What is involved in the competition of CrossFit? How does that work?
Well, the tricky part is you don't really know.
Okay.
So you don't know what the events are going to be. The idea is that you're good at everything before you turn up. Okay. So it'd be like turning up to a swim meet, and you've prepared all 4 strokes. So you've kind of got a bit of an understanding of what the disciplines might be. So, there might be some Olympic lifting, some gymnastics, and some kind of aerobic kind of fitness, but you don't know how it's going to be pieced together or how long the event may be. So maybe you turn up to a swim meet and they go, all right, today we're going to do 20 burpees and then 100 fly. Then you're going to go 20 pull-ups, and then we're going to go a 200 freestyle, and you're going to do that for time. So that's kind of what CrossFit is. It's kind of who can do a certain exercise normally the fastest or the heaviest, if that makes sense.
Okay. Because I mean, I've heard about it. I haven't sort of investigated the competition of CrossFit, so that's really interesting. So they want to find out exactly what you can do with your body, obviously, in any sort of forum, any sort of sphere.
Correct. Correct. So you might even typically there's like maybe 6 to 10 events when you turn up on a weekend, and one may test your aerobic endurance. So it might just be like a 2-kilometer row for time, or a 5-kilometer run. And then they piece in some Olympic lifting. So like what we see at the Olympics, like with a snatch or a clean and jerk. And typically they do those with more higher reps. And then there's going to be some gymnastics work. So that might be some like handstand walking or ring muscle ups or handstand push-ups. So it's really like, for me, it was the perfect thing to transition into, which was like I got to improve and really push my body. But then as I got a little bit older, I kind of now I don't. I still do similar style of gym training. I still really love gym training, but the idea with CrossFit was to push yourself to maximum exertion like every time.
Right.
And so every time you'd finish your workout, you'd be on the back, like sweating and puffing. Like, oh, that was just so hard. Whereas now, with my life now, I don't like to go quite as hard as often. I don't have my foot on the accelerator with everything I'm doing. So I've kind of stripped it back a little bit and just doing more strength training and being a little bit more specific to stuff I'm trying to do in the pool now as well. I've started swimming a little bit, which is enjoyed to be back in the pool.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What made you get back in at 34?
To be honest, just opportunity more than anything. I think with life, it's really important to do exercise that's convenient for you as well. And I think when you're kind of working full time, or you've got kids and you're running people around, it's important to be exercising, but it shouldn't be at the detriment. You shouldn't have to sacrifice too much to make it work. And for me now, we've just taken over running the pool at Mentone Grammar. So it's a learn to swim and squad programs called Mentone Aquatic. And so for the first 6 months of that new business, I was kind of the head coach of all of the squad programs, which meant I was standing on pool deck. And it also meant that there was water for me to swim in after I'd coached. So therefore I jumped in and just started swimming. And to my surprise, I would do a couple of 50s and look at the time. It's like, oh, I'm actually swimming quite fast here. So again, that cycle of, oh, I'm doing quite well. How about I do a competition? And then one thing leads to another, and I'm bloody winning the state championships for 50 freestyle, which was a bit of a surprise. And then when I went to nationals and was just racing, but I think I'm just enjoying the process of being back in the water, more so than the actual racing. And I said right from the start that even if I had done my first 50 freestyle and not won, or not got the time that I did, I still would have been doing it, just because of how enjoyable the process was. And I'd forgotten what it feels like to wake up in the morning the day of a swim meet and to be a bit nervous and not too sure about how much milk I want to put on my cereal, because I'm not sure how upset my guts are going to get. Those butterflies, it's quite a nice feeling. And then even getting to the pool and doing a bit of stretching and doing a warm up and jumping around and practicing your dives, was all that process stuff was way more enjoyable than doing the 50 freestyle itself. And that's how I felt when I went to nationals as well. And that's why I was really keen to go to Olympic trials, but obviously with COVID couldn't get in there. But I just loved, the sport of swimming again. So I'm just going to keep turning up and doing it for fun. And there'll be some times where I do a good preparation, I'm sure. And there'll be other times where I'm underdone and haven't done any swimming, just based on, life. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think you've just hit the nail on the head with, a lot of master swimmers have that sort of feeling where they may have swum when they were kids and they initially got into swimming because they enjoyed it, like you said, and become so serious. Sometimes, even though you lose that sort of wonder about it, that sort of fresh-faced joy. And I think when you come back to it when you're a bit older, you really appreciate those sort of feelings from when you're younger. And I think that's most master swimmers have that kind of feeling where they just enjoy swimming, and competing is great, but they love the camaraderie and the training that goes along with it. And I think that's
exactly
you sort of encapsulated that with what you've said.
Yeah, it's true that there's a really nice social aspect to swimming, and the feeling that you have in the water, I think, is really great as well. And I think the trickiest thing for me now is just going to be managing expectation, which you've learned. The whole swimming world is geared around performance, and when you're not performing, like what I did in swimming, you just stop. Whereas I don't think it needs to be like that, and more people need to be encouraged just to turn up and have a swim, and and have a race. And that'd be more like, you see there's still guys that are playing cricket, there's still guys that are playing AFL footy, there's still all of these other sports are still going with people managing their expectation. And it's more that the age bracket, that I've just come through from 25 to 35, where there's literally no one swimming. And that kind of is an area that I think can be improved by just managing people's expectation and bringing it back to a bit of fun and enjoyment about the process, not the result.
And with the training that you're doing now, as opposed to what you were doing, how obviously you at a lower volume, but has the actual things in the pool changed? Have you changed the amount of distance that you're doing?
Yeah, I would be doing a lot less. Now, but now that we've got a head coach in place, I can not be the coach and I can jump in with the squad now, which is quite fun. So I might do 3 sessions a week. Monday morning I like to do, which is a little bit longer, so that might be like 4 or 5K. And then I'll do the quality session on Thursday morning, and then maybe just have a swim in the bay or a swim by myself on the weekend. So probably not more than like 3 times a week, but just, again, going for enjoyment. I like the idea of doing longer, shorter rest type stuff. I love the quality, higher lactate, higher heart rate, a bit more intensity. And then also I still like, that's something that I've gravitated a little bit more towards, is those swims in the bay and open water swimming. I love every year to do the Portsea Swim Classic, the Mad Swim, and I've done the whole circuit a couple of times. So just going out there, and that's a really a sense of being free and being like nice and open in the water, and I love that. So I think that little combination is going to work for me, and that's something I think longevity. I know Rock spoke about breaking all the world records from the 90 years to 100 years age group. So maybe I'm a couple of years younger than Rock, so maybe I come through when I'm 90 and break all his Masters world records. So Exactly. So I think it's something like that. It's like, it's great to be thinking about this year, but what does swimming look like to me when I'm 50, 60, 70? And I don't want to be burnt out again, because I know how much fun it can bring. So it's just doing the kind of the minimal effective dose at the moment, I think, is my little strategy.
Yeah. And what would be your sort of go-to set at the moment that you would enjoy? Obviously, you like the short rest type stuff. What's one that you would recommend for people?
What did we do? We've been doing, Josh Beaver's our coach. So Josh swam at the Rio Olympics in the 100 and 200 backstroke. And it's actually nice to jump in and not be the dictator and be dictated to. So see what's written on the whiteboard and just do it. That's something that's quite nice, opposed to writing all the programs. So every Thursday morning we've been doing broken 200s. So it started a little bit similar to like what I was talking about with that racing every week. 9 weeks out from the competition, we did 9 200s broken, then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you race the following week. So the broken 200s have been quite challenging. So they've been broken up a little bit differently. So the first one would be 100, then a 50 and a 50. The next one would be 50, 100, 50. And then the last couple would be 50, 50, 50, 50. And so that's all about learning how to pace and kind of push through a little bit of fatigue. And I think it's kind of nice, like for me, to not go that completely top end sprint stuff. That more like comfortable 200 pace is more enjoyable for me to do at training. And that's been working quite well.
Yeah. What kind of time rest would you be having there?
So we've been doing the 50s on the 50 time cycle, and the 100s are on the 130. So we are swimming short course. So I'm aiming to like, when you add all the times together, to be around 154. So holding around 28-ish for my 50s. And so bit of a shortish rest. But we're lucky we can we've got the whole pool of a morning. So we kind of have we have six lanes who go head-to-head racing, and then 2 lanes that do just swim off in between, and we go one wave at a time. So it's pretty cool. And I've every Thursday morning I've been drumming up a few of my mates to come along and swim. So Reece Mainstone, who just got in, who's he's represented Australian open water swimming. Toby Haynen comes in and swim. A mate of mine, Brent Skidudis, comes along. So there's a couple of more guys that, 30 plus who step up and just push themselves. And it's quite interesting to see the, how hard we can still go, or kind of more so the disciplines that we put in place as like young kids still kind of roll over to now when we step up and not necessarily compete against each other, but just push each other to get the most out of ourselves. It's something that, the kids that are in the squad, we're almost able to do it better than them just based on us having done that for years, and they can look at us. And that's why I wanted to get these older guys along, to set an example of like, hey, we're in our mid-30s. We shouldn't be pushing ourselves this hard, but we do, because this is a habit that we've got, and we know how to get the most out of ourselves. So have a look at us and how hard we're working, and you guys should be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's great for them to see. I mean, also you've stayed very fit, which is sort of one of the reasons, I suppose, that it's been more of an easy transition to get back into the water for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. I just actually like it. Whatever it is, I like keeping fit, whether it's swimming, running, gym. I just love it. It touched on a little bit before, like the amount of gym that I've done. Well, now that I'm swimming, I feel a different connection in the water. I feel more of a connection through my core than maybe I did when I was swimming 10 years ago. And, in hindsight, the amount that I know about training and energy systems and gym training and stuff like that, I wish I could apply some of that, or even recovery protocols as well, apply some of that stuff to when I was a little bit younger and just a go-getter.
Yeah. Well, I think when you're younger too, you just, as you say, you go to the pool and you just do the session that's up on the board. You don't question it. You don't think about it. Obviously you took your swimming to a pretty high level, so you would have had some more of an understanding. But I feel like I was just a blind sort of follower of sessions that my coach wrote on the board. And I didn't think about any of those things till I was much older and understood, as you say. Yeah.
There's it's almost a two-way street, though. I think sometimes there's something to be said about that blind trust and being naive in what you're really doing, and trusting your coach that what they're putting on the whiteboard is the right thing for you. Because you can get to a stage where you're questioning just too much, and maybe you're overthinking everything. So it's really treading this fine line between the trusting in the team that you've built to get your best performance, and having almost just knowing your body when your body needs to have a rest. Because at some stage you are supposed to be tired, you are supposed to be beaten up a little bit, and then you recover, and then you're supposed to swim good. But if you're always just over monitoring yourself, and you're a bit scared to put yourself in a hole because you're overthinking, you may not be able to get that really high peak at the end. So it's a tricky balance, because that I think that I maybe got a little bit too smart at the end of my swimming, or overthought a bit too much, and that was to my detriment. And that was in the way that I approached races, and the way that I stood up on the block, and I was just everything. I was a little bit too anal, and just wouldn't let it flow. When I was a young kid, it was just I'll just go out there and I'll go out fast and come back faster, almost that type of a race plan. Whereas when you're over strategizing and you tense up just that little bit, that 1% over 100-meter or a 200-meter race, that adds up to being the difference of winning and or swimming a PB and not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With your 50 fly and free that you just did recently, how close were those times to your original times?
The 53 was quite close. So
Yeah.
I went 22.7
Wow.
at state championships. And I think I very rarely went under 23 when I was swimming like professionally. My fastest time in a super suit was 22.2. So I was half a
Right.
second off that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's really
Close to a
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, very close to a PB.
Yeah. I think you need to do some masters competitions so that you can get some world records.
I know. Well, I've got another guy who comes on Thursdays, Tyson Young. He swims at PowerPoints, and he's just started to float that idea to me a little bit more about the Masters racing. But you just see, even at the Australian Olympic trials, you had Matt Target, who made the final in the 53, and he's a couple of years older than me. And then even leading off the relay team for Canada was Brent Hayden, and he's 37, and he went 47.8 or something ridiculous like that. So, yeah, my age is just a number, really. And the way things are moving now, Brent Hayden's just got amazing technique. I think he won the world championships in Melbourne 2007 in the 100 free, in the same time as what he swam that lead off leg in the freestyle relay. So just amazing that, whatever that is, 14 years later, he's still swimming the same time. And that just comes down to, technique, that fitness, and just, and age being a number, and that's that extra strength you can have. Like, I just feel you kind of, I don't know, a bit of man strength when you're over 30.
Yes, yeah,
you get a little bit heavier, and it's just like, when you're young, you shake your dad's hand, you're like, wow, you're like a man, like I'm becoming a bit more like that now.
Man hands, right?
Yeah.
And have you got any predictions for the rest of the swimming at the Olympics? What do you think we're going to see from the Australians?
I think the women's 4x200 is going to absolutely dominate and break the world record there. So that'll be a really good one. I'm really looking forward to the mixed medley relay and seeing how for a new Olympic event, how all of the countries strategize and what legs they swim the males and the females in. That'll be exciting. The men's 100 free is really hard to not get excited about, to see Caleb Dressel, Kyle Chalmers, and then the new young guy on the scene, Popovici. So that'll be an exciting race. Who else am I looking forward to? I reckon Ariana's going to win the 200 free. So for her to win the 200, the 400 by chair. And I can't go past the 100 fly as well. I've had a little bit to do with Matthew Temple over his journey, and to see him go 50.4 and break my Australian record at Olympic trials was pretty amazing. I kind of sent him a message the day before. I just said, good luck, mate. Now's the time to go break the record, and couldn't be more proud of him. Met his parents at the Swimming Victoria Awards dinner, and they're really nice people. And I think he's got a really good opportunity to stand up there and surprise a few people. It's going to be a tough ask to beat Dressel, who goes 49.5 for 100 fly, but to step up on the podium and keep that tradition alive. There was myself and Michael Klim and Jeff Hugel, who have all been on the podium over the journey or over the last kind of 20 years, and for him to step up and do it in Tokyo would be amazing.
Would be amazing. Yeah, I hope he does it. I really do. Yeah.
I think, he did a really good lead off in the 4x100, so he went 48.0. So that's a good indication that he's swimming nice and fast and is in a good position. Yeah,
definitely. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us an insight into your swimming journey. It's been lovely to meet you and hear all about it, and wishing you every success for your future master swimming.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure I'll see you at a pool shortly.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, take care and enjoy the rest of the Olympics.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.